Okay, perfect. So this is my family. I have 3 children. My husband and I have been married 25 years. 2 of our children, the boy and the girl on the ends, attended UCLA. My son graduated last June in economics. My daughter is a sophomore right now in the public affairs program, and my middle child decided to break the tradition of going to UCLA and go to an HBCU all the way across the country. So she attends Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and she is a mass comm major, and she's having a great time. She just came back. In fact, they get out early out there in the South, so we're really excited about that. But this is kind of how it's because of these 3 kids that I ended up learning how to apply to college again, because a lot has changed since when many of us as parents went to school. And it was a learning process. And after I learned it from my son, I was like, I got to teach other parents, I've got to teach other kids, so they'll know how to best prepare so that they can be competitive to get into the colleges that they really want to get into. So the high school resume, it's more than just a document, and I'll be speaking more about it in a little bit. I'll actually show you a sample of it, but it functions for a lot of good things that you're going to need in terms of preparing for college and preparing for life in general. It really gives sort of a snapshot of who you are to whoever is looking at you on, this piece of paper will tell them a lot about who you are, what you've done, the kinds of things that you're passionate about. And that's why it's such an important piece of paper to have. You can use it for your college applications. We literally had the resume next to us as we were filling out college applications. You can use this document to pass out at college fairs or meetings when you're interacting with college admissions advisors or directors. It's always just a nice professional thing to be able to have that not many kids will walk around having at a college fair, let me tell you. So that makes you stand out more than other people. It's a very important document to be able to give to teachers or administrators or counselors when you're asking them to write a letter of recommendation for you. And they're like, well, tell me about yourself, because I only know you in my interaction with you in the classroom. So having the resume really helps them see the broader picture of who you are and the kinds of things that you've been involved in. It's also great for scholarship applications. And in my next workshop that I'll be doing on the 20th, I'll go into a lot more detail about scholarships, but this is a key way to pay for college. And every scholarship application that my kids have had to fill out, they always ask these same questions. What are you involved in? What are your leadership roles? How long have you been doing community service? And having the resume has all that information right there on it. And what we've even done in a lot of instances for job applications and for scholarship applications, you just write "see attached," and then you attach your resume to it, and you don't even have to finish filling out all that information because it'll be duplicated in the resume. I always say, and these are my words, diverse exposure and experience to a variety of activities creates a well-rounded student and a competitive college applicant. If you aren't doing a lot of other things besides just going to school, or maybe just doing a sport or having a particular hobby, you are not going to stand out on any college application. And therefore, a lot of the colleges that you might want to go to or your kids might want to go to, they're not going to be eligible if they don't have things that they can write about. So this is a sample of a resume, and if you would like me to send this to you in a hard copy, I'd be happy to do that. I'll put my email address to be able to contact me at the end. But this is just one example. It doesn't, all resumes don't have to be laid out this way, but you'll see we start with an academic objective. I am a college-bound junior at Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies, seeking to further my education at a 4-year university. That's kind of how we started the resumes. And as it got closer to them finalizing or honing in on the type of schools or the particular school that they were going to, then we modified that to be specific to the school. Key information about your grades. If you have AP scores, you can put that in there. Achievement and honors are always important to include, as well as any community service, employment, activities, clubs, etc. You'll notice at the bottom that this is one of 3 pages. all of my kids had 2- and 3-page resumes just because we were putting them in activities every opportunity that existed, from spring break to summer break to winter break. I kept my kids busy, and as a parent, I recommend you doing the same thing. A, it keeps them out of trouble, but B, it makes them that much more competitive when it's time to apply to college. So what do competitive colleges expect to see? In addition to having a great GPA, which most kids do when they're applying to college, you can have advanced coursework, SAT, ACT scores. This is now not becoming so much the norm. A lot of colleges are going either test optional, where you can supply your scores if you want to, or some schools like the UCs don't want your scores at all. So in light of that, while that might sound, oh, great, now I don't have to worry about it, they're putting less weight on the SAT and ACT scores, but now they're putting more weight on all these extracurricular activities, which is why it's so important that you have them. They're looking for awards and honors, and I'll go into a lot more details on specific pages, but they want to know the dates. When did you get this award? Who gave you the award? What was the level of award? Was this like the highest award that this organization offers, or sort of a mid-level award? And then they want a description of how did you go about getting it. For the college application, they're going to ask you these questions. Same thing for community service. They want to know the number of hours you invested. They want to know the organization you worked with. They want to know if you had any leadership title in the organization. And again, what is the description of what you did and what this organization does? Same thing for extracurricular activities, same thing for work experience and internships. They want all of that information. There's two main for the state of California, I'll just say, but this applies to schools across the country. For private schools, about 99% of private schools use something called the Common Application, which is one application. You attach all of the schools that you're interested in applying to that application. And there's one section in there that asks for extracurricular activities, honors, awards. They want you to have 10 extracurricular activities. You have to be able to list at least 10, and 5 honors. They give you space for that. Now, you don't have to fill those spaces up. It's optional. But let me tell you, most of the kids applying to these schools can fill them up and do fill them up. And that's, again, what makes you more competitive. So for the private schools, you need to have about 15 of those things. For the UCs, they want 20. They give you space for 20. The Cal States, they don't ask you to list anything, but they just ask you questions like, are you involved in any extracurricular activities? Yes or no. Do you hold any leadership roles? Yes or no. So it's a much simpler process, but it's still important to be able to answer the yes. And then community colleges don't ask you that at all. They're more interested in your grades and the level of courses that you've already taken. So this is just sort of again, a synopsis of what the expectation is going to college. And again, if you only have 2 or 3 things on your resume to list and you're applying to a UC, you're going to fall short compared to other people who are applying. When you get a school like UCLA, which happens to be my alma mater, they had 145,000 applicants this past year, 145,000 for 4,500 spots. So you can imagine the chances of you getting into a school like that are going to be significantly lower if you aren't competitive on your application by having as many of these things as possible that you can list. What is the definition for extracurricular activity? This is probably the #1 question that I get, especially from young people. What counts as extracurricular activity? And I say any activity a student does outside of the classroom is considered extracurricular. Now, I wouldn't include watching television, and I wouldn't include doing video games, but I will talk about if you have an Instagram or social media or YouTube channel, how that could count. But just in general, anything that you do outside of the classroom is considered extracurricular. And I'm going to go through some specific things that you can do. But what colleges are looking for, activities that demonstrate growth and leadership. Like, let's say you joined a club and you started as a member, but then after a year, you were promoted to an officer position, president or treasurer, or vice president. That's the kind of thing that colleges are looking for. They also want to see the length of time that you're involved in these. So what they don't want to see is, ninth, 10th, 11th grade, you're just cruising with, maybe one or two activities. And then 12th grade, boom, you have this great revelation and you join 20 clubs. Yeah, that looks kind of good, but they're also looking at you've only been in those activities for a short period of time. They would much rather see that you've chosen something that you're passionate about, you're involved in something that you're really interested in, and that you're wanting to and willing to stick with it over a long period of time. So that's where that dedication and commitment comes in. And then the other thing that they're looking for is whatever the activity is, what kind of impact are you making not only for yourself by being involved in this organization or activity, but what kind of impact or influence are you having in your community? So this is why community service is so important. They want to see, are you really interested in making a difference? Because if you are, then maybe I do want you at my college campus. But if you're just looking to get an education just for the sake of your own benefit, I've got 145,000 other people who are willing to try to do something to change the world and make it a better place. So these are the kinds of things that colleges are thinking about, not only when they're looking for the extracurricular activities, but they're also assessing and analyzing what kinds of activities that you're involved in. So the first thing is honors and awards. This is a big one. They want to know that not only are you involved in different things, but you're doing it in a level where other people are recognizing you and giving you kudos, giving you awards for it. So any contest or competition that you're involved in, and you win any kind of award, that would be something you would put on your resume. Any kind of academic or scholastic achievement, like, hey, I was on the dean's list, or high GPA this month, or whatever kinds of awards your school gives out. Anything like that would be something in the awards honors section. If you play a sport and you get MVP or your team wins the championship, even though you may not get an individual award from that, you are on a championship team. That is an honor. And that would be something that you can include. Anything for music or art recognition, any kind of scholarship that you receive, whether it's even if it's not for money, if you're recognized by an organization for some sort of outstanding achievement or outstanding effort in the community, that would be something that you would list. If you show up in the newspaper for any reason, all three of my kids have been in national publications for a variety of different things that they've done. My daughter, as an example, was in the Wall Street Journal for creating a video resume. And the company that she ended up getting hired for was a digital marketing agency. And they were so impressed. And Wall Street Journal contacted them about this was part of their hiring process. They gave them my daughter's name. And so, yeah, she was in the Wall Street Journal. My son was in a USA Today for featured as an African-American college student trying to get a job in the finance industry. And they did a whole feature story on him. So anytime you're in or your school is in and you are mentioned as part of that in any way, that is something that you could list in your honors and awards section. And then finally, even if you are just a member of an organization, like let's say the National Honor Society, they don't necessarily give awards, but they do give a membership certificate to anyone who joins that organization. That would be another example of something that you can list in that section. So most, again, applications for the Common App, you only need to have 5 of these, but for the UCs, it's however many you choose to list among your 20 spaces that you have to fill. Community service. This is also a big thing that colleges want to know. What are you doing for the community? Because if you're already as a high school student demonstrating that you're doing things for your local community, then that gives them a big sign that most likely you're going to want to stay engaged and do something at the college level as well, whether it be right there on the campus of wherever you choose to go to college, or the surrounding community where the college is located. Now, and for community service, they're not necessarily interested in quantity of different kinds of things that you've done. They would much rather see you do 6 hours at a dog adoption center, then 2 hours doing a beach cleanup, 2 hours doing a clothing drive, and 2 hours, working at a senior center. Still 6 hours of community service, but what the college tells them when they see you're working 6 hours at the dog adoption center is that you must have a passion for dogs or animals, and that you like animals and dogs so much that you're willing to commit 6 hours of your time just doing that. And that's the kind of thing that they want to know. Anytime you do community service, make sure that you log your hours. Oftentimes, some scholarships will actually ask you that you have to have like a signed document from that organization or a signed letter from that organization verifying that. But in most cases, it's just an honor system in terms of how many hours you do work. Community service also tells colleges a lot about who you are and how you might want to make a difference in the world. And it also tells them other things about you, like perhaps your interest in your faith, perhaps your interest in your culture, perhaps your interest in things that you might want to major in college. So I've just listed a few areas where you can seek to do community service. It could be at your church or your temple or your mosque, a senior center, homeless shelter, hospital volunteer, if that's something you're interested in. It could be something related to a job or something that you want to pursue. You could be tutoring other students at your school or in your neighborhood. That would be considered community service. One of the things we did was a missions trip. I took my 2 daughters to Mexico City during spring break one year, and we served in a safe house for young teenage girls who've been rescued from human sex trafficking. And we were there for the entire week, and we got to do workshops with them. My daughter gave them a volleyball clinic because she was on the volleyball team. She taught them different aspects of how to play the game. We did a cooking class. We just did all sorts of things in the course of that one week. It was a life-changing experience, not only for my kids, but for the girls that we were there ministering to. So mission trips are always a great way to get out of the country, get out of your environment, and do things like that. Service projects, even being a host family is considered a community service activity. We were a host family for a Uganda choir that came into town, and we sponsored having many of those kids stay over at our house just for 2 days. And they were basically touring around to different churches with their beautiful voices. So this is, again, another way that you can incorporate community service in a very easy way that doesn't occupy too much of your time, but looks really good on college applications. Clubs, programs, and teams. This is big for colleges. They want to know that you're actively engaged in things inside and outside of school. It also gives them insight into the kinds of things that you're interested in, kinds of things you're passionate about. It demonstrates growth and development in leadership. It can strengthen a cultural, religious, or a gender affiliation, like if you're in a women's group or a men's group of some sort. Showcases a gift or talent that you have, and it also demonstrates teamwork and your ability to reach common goals with others, which is, again, characteristics and attributes that colleges are looking for. I mentioned the missions trip that I took my daughters on. One of the things that came out of that is that they were so inspired by the kind of work that they did there. They came back and they started a club called Nuna You. And this was a club that was bringing awareness to kids in high school about human trafficking, because believe it or not, this is a global epidemic, not just in Mexico City, not just with girls, but with boys as well. And not just with Latino people, but with all people of color and non-color. I mean, it's just all over the world. So we wanted to do that to raise awareness and help educate kids on how to be safe. And then they did a lot of fundraisers for the nonprofit organization that they worked with in Mexico City. So that's just an example of how one kind of community service leads to another way of outreach that can also get other kids involved. And so now you've got two things on your resume. You've got your missions trip and you've got a club that you started. And then you can do the results from that. So just showing you different ways on how you can expand and multiply the benefits of some of the activities that you do. Now, you might be asking, well, I don't really know what to get involved in my school, but most high schools, bar none, have at least some of these things on them that you can participate in. Every single school has some clubs. My kids' high school actually had 97 clubs. So if you could not find at least one thing to join out of 97 clubs, and believe it or not, some people couldn't, you can actually create your own club, like my daughters did. Have something that you're really interested in doing. I'm coaching a kid right now, and he is a whiz in the whole cryptocurrency situation. And this was before everything kind of compulted to the way that it did. He was educating people at his school on what cryptocurrency is and how to do it, how to get involved in it. He started his own club. That was an interest that he has. You can become a college peer counselor at your school. You can be involved in athletics or sports, either in or outside of school, but certainly every school, every high school has some kind of team. And let's say you're not very athletic. My youngest daughter did cheerleading for a couple years, and then she decided, I don't really like sports. So then her senior year, she became the manager of the softball team because her friend played softball. So she didn't actually play the sport, but she became a manager of the sport. And that was now a leadership role that she can include on her resume. Many schools have restorative justice programs or speech and debate. These are also great avenues to join. Leadership or student government, as it's often called, associated student body is often what it's called in high schools. You could work on the yearbook. You could work on the school newspaper. You could be involved in theater or choir or orchestra or band or any kind of music. Mock trials, some schools have this, or Model You Win, or Get Lit, which is a poetry program that's a national program that a lot of high schools offer. Pretty much every high school offers a Black Student Union or a Young Black Scholars organization. You can be involved in that, or a Science Bowl, just whatever thing you're interested in. Your school, I'm sure, offers it to some degree. And if you don't know about it, you should go and ask your counselors or your, kids in the classes above you, hey, how do I join that club? How do I get involved in that organization? Some of these are actually classes that are offered as an elective that you can take. So it doesn't even have to be something in addition to your coursework. It's like incorporated into classes that you're already taking. So these are just a couple of ideas of things you can do inside your own school. And then there's a ton of things that you can get involved in outside of your school. Club sports is probably the number one thing that I see when I'm coaching college students that they're involved in, like club soccer, club volleyball, any sport that has a club. I know a kid who's in club hockey. That is a great opportunity that you can put on your resume. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. If you have an interest or your child has an interest in civic or political engagement, there is a national organization called Youth in Government that's offered through YMCA. My son was involved in this program, and it really taught him about the legislative process. He actually got to go to Sacramento. You learn how to draft bills and advocate for them. It is a fabulous program. I highly recommend it. And again, this is something that's offered through YMCA across the country. Another great program that is offered, if you're interested in this kind of thing, is usually offered through every state, through the mayor's office. It's called the Mayor's Youth Council. My daughter Trinity was involved in this, and she was overseeing the homeless cohort. So she was working with other students who had an interest in solving the homeless problem in Los Angeles. At the time, we had about 65,000 homeless people on the streets. Now, since COVID, I think that number may have even doubled. But what she was specifically working on was, how do we find alternative housing? How do we find alternative food resources for many of our unhoused people who are living on the streets, many of whom are children who are living on the streets. And so that was the kind of work that she did with the Mayor's Youth Council. It's a free program. You just have to apply to participate on it, but this looks fantastic on a resume. Youth conferences and conventions. Many fraternities and sororities offer youth conferences throughout the year that you can attend. Sometimes these are only one-day sessions that you go to, like attending something like this is a workshop to learn about college. These kinds of things show colleges that you're really serious about going to college. You're really doing everything that you can to learn about the process and to make yourself as competitive as possible. If your child or if you're a student, participate in walkouts or marches or demonstrations. Oh my gosh, after George Floyd incident last year in 2020, everybody was out marching, doing things. And these are outstanding things to put on your resume, because these really show that you have a passion for social justice. You have a passion for changing things that are wrong in our world, and that you as a student are willing to get involved literally with your own body to bring voice for change in a lot of these areas. So my kids were involved in not only the walkouts for that, they participated in school climate walkouts, they participated in gun control walkouts on high school campuses, just whatever, anything social justice related. My girls especially were out there walking the walk literally to, bring voice to a lot of these things. And these are great opportunities. Cultural and faith-based and gender-based organizations are also really good opportunities to get involved, like Jack and Jill, like 100 Black Men of America. Again, these are both all national organizations. If you go to a church and you're involved in the youth group, that's something that should be on your resume as well, because that is an organization. It's not a club per se, but it's an opportunity where you're associating with other peers your age, and you're learning about a specific thing for the better good of yourself and others. So these are just some examples of opportunities that you can do outside of your school. But wait, I have more. Special interest programs. Let's say you want to be a filmmaker. Well, guess what? There is a program called the Bill Duke Youth Media Camp where you can actually participate in this program. It's through application. It's free. In fact, I should say, if I haven't said it earlier, my favorite word in the dictionary is free. And so if there is a program out there that doesn't cost any money at all to participate in, those are usually the ones that I target first. And I hear about these programs through a variety of means. People tell me about them. I talk to other parents and they tell me about them. This was one I heard about from a kid who I was coaching, who was a filmmaker. He participated in this youth media program, and part of the program, he was actually had the opportunity to go to Universal Lot to film a movie and just get exposure to other filmmakers in the industry. He's now a student at, he started at Biola. He's now a student at Chapman University doing this. And so these are just great programs. Earthwatch Institute is, if you like sciences or being in the outdoors, that's a great program. The Princeton Prize in Race Relations program. Again, if social justice is your thing, that's an outstanding program. Disney Dreamers Academy. I think every child in the nation should apply for this. There's only going to be 100 selected, but my daughter actually was one of the 100 selected. It comes with a 4-day paid trip to Disney World, where you are exposed to people in all different industries who support whatever your dream is for life. So for my daughter, her dream was she wanted to really learn more about makeup and beauty, because she wants to one day create perhaps her own cosmetic line or beauty line. And so she had the opportunity to meet with and be mentored by the editor-in-chief of Essence Magazine to help her facilitate this dream. The bad thing was it Disney Dreamers for her landed in 2020, which was, of course, the year that COVID came. And so that particular session for Disney's Dreamers didn't come to the full fruition as it had in the past. We still got to go to Disney World for 4 days, and we still got to stay there, and everything was paid for. But this is a program, I think the applications are usually due the end of October. So I would say Google that. It's a great opportunity for kids to get involved in, and it looks fantastic on a college application or on your resume. Other things, if you have hobbies that you like to do, these are things that you can also list on your resume. If you're good in photography or you like to cook, or I mentioned technology, if you are very, you have a very cool Instagram or a following. A lot of kids now like to sell things, drop ship things, they call it. If you have a clothing line or something that you've created, or you have a really cool YouTube channel, this is something that's taking up your time and it's creating an interest by followers. This is a very important thing that you would want to include on your resume and in your application, because it's showing colleges, A, that you're creative, and B, that you have influence. Because if you've got followers, that means people are tuning into you to see what it is that you're talking about or doing. And that is a great thing to have. If you have family responsibilities, many of kids who apply to colleges, yeah, they're involved in stuff. They might be working, but they also carry a heavy load at home because mom and dad both work out of the house, and there's younger children there. And so they might be have the additional responsibility in addition to school and working and doing all these other things. They might have to help take care of their siblings. They might have to do extra chores around the house. They might have to work in a family business. They might have to help take care of grandma or grandpa. These are important things. These are important responsibilities that young people are involved in, and they count, believe it or not, on your college application. And colleges look for that. We see that especially with first-gen students. They have a lot of things on their plate, many of which are things out of their control. And so colleges over the years have really increased the worth and the value of this kind of activity, because they know that it means a lot and a lot of kids have to do it. Leadership programs are another thing that your kid or if you're a student listening can get involved in. And I've just listed a few here. One of my favorites is the African American Leaders of Tomorrow. This is done by the California Legislative Black Caucus. And it's a program my daughter and my son participated in. I think it's like 3 days at Cal State Dominguez Hills, again, learning about the legislative process, learning how to draft bills, and learning how to get a bill from start to finish through the legislature. So this is a really great program. It was also free. It's an overnight program. And the great thing about all these programs is that your kids get to meet other high achieving kids who have similar interests, who actually may end up being at the same school or college as your kids. So these are great ways for them to already build in a network before they even get to their campus. And then finally, other opportunities outside of school include jobs or internships, anything that you work where you're getting paid. And even if you're not getting paid, if you're doing an internship where you're working under someone and maybe you're getting school credit, or you're just learning a craft in some ways, this is a great thing that you want to put on your resume. It shows responsibility. It shows dependability. Oftentimes it can show a college leadership growth, especially if you start in one position and you're promoted to something else. And it also shows commitment, because oftentimes these jobs give you some degree of longevity in terms of the degree of time that you spend doing that activity. So these are all great ways, and again, great things that they want to see for college applications. There's also, in addition to those programs I talked about, there's college prep and what I'm calling sort of educational activities. These are activities that really show schools, again, that you're serious about going to college, so much so that you're doing as much as you can on the college level to prepare for that. So what do I mean when I say on the college level? You're involved in some sort of activity at the college campus or on a college campus. And it can be any college campus. It doesn't have to be anyone in particular. But as an example, if you take a class as a high school student, which most most high schools will offer this, and most community colleges will offer this. It's called a dual enrollment program. And it means you're duly enrolled in high school and you're enrolled in a college, a community college. By taking classes at a community college, you are already earning college credit that in most cases can be transferred to the college that you ultimately attend, but it's also equivalent, if not better, than taking an AP class. Why do I say this? Well, for one, you can do a lot of these online. They're fairly easy if you're taking introductory classes like Intro to Business or Intro to Marketing or Intro to Sociology. These would all be considered general ed classes your first year of college anyway. You can take them online. You can score really high on them. You don't have to take an AP exam. And as I said, you can in most cases transfer those college credits to the college. Whereas with an AP class, you have to pass the AP exam with a score of 3, 4, or 5. Some colleges don't accept all of those scores. USC is an example. If you score a 3 on any AP exam, they're not going to accept that. They want you to get at least a 4 or a 5. If you go to a school like Stanford, they don't care what score you got because they're not going to accept that college credit. They want you to take that class over again at their school so that they can ensure that everybody coming in from all across the country is starting at the same level field. So that's something you should look into before you sign up for a bunch of AP classes is, ooh, does the college that I want to go to, are they going to accept these AP credits? Because otherwise, in some cases, they don't. I coached a kid one time who had 15 APs from LASITs, 15, scored 4s and 5s on every single AP exam, got a Posse scholarship to Middlebury College, which is a STEM school, and they accepted 0. They did not accept one single AP class for credit. They sure love seeing it on his resume. They sure love seeing it on his college application. They sure love seeing it on his transcript. And that is obviously what helped him get into the school. But when it came to transferring those credits, he didn't get any. Whereas my daughter, Taylor, who went to an HBCU, she took quite a few classes at a community college. Every single one of those classes transferred over to the degree that she started her freshman year with already a semester of classes under her belt. So that really gave her some leeway in her performance that first semester, which we know is going to drop a little bit from high school to college that first semester. She had that padding of already have a whole semester behind her that she achieved by going to community college here at home. So again, I'm very big on community colleges. Any program that you take on a college campus, I mentioned, is something that you want to include, like AP Readiness, which is offered at UCLA, attending college fairs. My son was involved in a FBI Teen Academy program. This is also something that may or may not be offered on a national level, but the Los Angeles Bureau here does offer a Teen Academy. This is a STEM program where he got to learn about bomb detonation, DNA results, how do you evaluate a crime scene, because at one point he wanted to be a special agent for FBI. But the other part of that program is that they talk about college requirements and what's necessary to get into college. So when I talk about a college prep program, regardless of the focus, like if it's a STEM related or any other a major related, it still is going to give you information about what it is that you need to do to apply to college and to get into college. And so all of these programs that I've listed are ones that do that. And so if you have those on your resume as well, again, it lets colleges know how serious you are about preparing for college and doing everything that you possibly can to get in. So a lot of people say, well, how do you find out about all these programs? Oh my gosh. I start initially when my son was in college, or when my son was in high school, I should say, starting with the high school college center. Most high schools have some kind of college center. Some high schools offer something better than others. But if your school has a college counselor, not a regular counselor, but a college counselor, they are the starting point for finding out and hearing about a lot of these programs. Many of them will publicize them out to the whole school. Sometimes these programs are only posted within the college center. So you need to find out what it is, how your particular high school works, how that information is shared or disseminated, and start there. That's always a great place. But bar none, most of the time I hear about a lot of these programs through my own network of friends and family. And I'm constantly asking parents when I'm in parent meetings or when I'm in settings at school or anytime I run into parents, people with kids, I'm like, hey, what kind of programs are your kids interested in? Or I hear about, hey, how did you hear about that FBI teen program? Or, hey, how did you know about this mayor's program? This is a great way to expand your knowledge of things. And it doesn't mean you have to get involved in every single program that your friends or family tell you about, but you start asking, starting there. Sometimes your friends or family know about these programs because it's part of their job. That FBI Teen Academy that I just told you about, we have a friend who is an FBI agent. And he said, hey, are any of your kids interested in, teen programs? I'm like, of course. So just the fact that he worked there, he knew about it, he was able to tell us or inquire about it, and that's how we found out, and I've been publicizing it ever since. So that's a great way. Another great way is through partnerships that you have with your teachers and your counselors. That Mayor's Youth Program I told you about was actually a program that one of my daughter's teachers told her about. He said, I think you would be really good for this program. And so here's the information about how to apply. Teachers hear about these things all the time. And when they're thinking about, who should I tell or who should I, maybe share this with? It may not be with the whole class, unfortunately. But what they do think about is who's standing out in my classroom? Who are the kids that I feel like are really serious about college? Or who are the kids that I really feel like have an interest in social justice? And then those are the kids' names that are going to come top of mind. And those are going to be the kids that the teacher approaches. So it's very important from a student perspective that you're not just trying to do well in your classroom for your own benefit to get good grades, but you really want to make sure every opportunity you have for your teachers to know you as a person, because this can bring you great benefit in terms of them identifying you for these kinds of opportunities, but also in writing letters of recommendation. Other times I find programs by just literally Googling. The Disney Dreamers we had heard about, I kind of had been hearing about it off and on from different things. I didn't really know a lot about it. And finally, we just Googled it, got all the information, and then applied for it. So literally, you can Google leadership programs for high school students, or I always, again, my favorite word is free summer programs for high school students. You can Google those and see what kinds of things come up. And again, some of these are going to be local programs. Some of these are national programs. The other thing I tell parents, don't be afraid to send your kid away for the summer to a program to do something. It'll be a great learning experience for them to sort of get out of their own comfort zone. It stretches their boundaries and their perspectives about going to college out of state. And it's just usually going to be an opportunity that's going to broaden their horizons in a number of ways that will help them when they're applying to college. The only thing I do like to remind people is that a lot of these applications, especially for summer programs, they start advertising like January to March, and their deadlines, are coming up. I recently heard about one. It's called the UC Berkeley Summer Experience, I believe it is. And their window for application is like May 5th to May 8th. It's like a 4-day window. And so you only have that window of time to apply. It's a simple online application. You don't even need letters of rec or anything. It doesn't guarantee that you get in. I know lots of people apply to that one, but that's one that it's a residency program. You would go and stay at UC Berkeley for, I think, a weekend. And you're going to get a lot of this pre-prep college information, which is very, very useful. And again, it's free. Once you have your resume and you're getting involved in all these activities, now you've got to be able to put all of this stuff in one place for a couple of reasons. One, you want to be able to have that resume in a binder with your transcripts, your report cards, your certificates and your awards, any kind of national testing you have to do. LAUSD and a lot of these school districts have you doing all kinds of smarter balance testing, maybe your AP testing. You want to put your SAT scores in there, your ACT scores in there, any other kind of information or brochures from the programs you participated in. Proof of any community service hours you want to have, all of that in the notebook, because when you start sitting down to fill out your college applications and they start asking you to describe this program that you've been involved in, if it was something you did in 9th grade, you may not remember all those details, but if you kept the flyer from that program or you kept the application from that program, boom, it's all right there for you. So I always kept all of this stuff for my kids in these binders, and it was just very accessible for them to have. The other benefit of this binder is for building self-esteem. I know even though my kids were very successful and they did a lot of great things, they went to a very, very competitive high school. Now, what do I mean when I say competitive high school? I mean, at graduation time, there were no less than 65 valedictorians. 65 people out of a class of 220. That's ridiculous. And you can imagine that there is, as smart as they are and as much as they're doing, that there's other kids that are even smarter and are doing even more. And so in that kind of an environment, kids, no matter how smart they are, no matter how successful they are, their self-esteem takes a hit and they start to question their ability. They start to wonder, gosh, am I really smart enough to go to college? Is this college really going to accept me? And I would pull out that binder as a way to remind my kids, oh yeah, you're smart. Oh yeah, you've done some great things. Oh yeah, you're going to make a difference. Here's proof. We've got the binder right here. Yeah, you're thinking you're not so smart in math. You got a 1350 on your SAT. It's right there. We got proof. We got data to support this. So yeah, maybe other kids, 1400 or higher or whatever, that's fine, but it doesn't devalue your worth or your value in your ability to succeed and perform at the same level, if not more, than anybody else that you're going to be going toe to toe with. So I literally, I still have all these binders. This one is my daughter's binder, and you can just kind of see how thick it is. It's because we literally put everything in here. And it's also very useful. We've started the same kind of binders for my kids when they went to college, kept all the same things, because guess what? You kind of got to do the same thing if you're in college, if you have any desire to go to grad school or to law school or into the medical field. You have to be able to repeat this whole process when you're applying to that next level of education. So it's important to kind of get in the habit of it now. So that's what we do. We keep it all under one book. It's easy to reference when you're filling out your college applications, filling out for job applications, and filling out for scholarship applications. So at this point, if there are any questions that have come up in the chat, I'd be happy to answer those. And I think some of my brothers are going to help facilitate questions that have come up in the chat. That would be great.
Great. Thanks, Terry. Thank you so much for that presentation. And if you, ladies and gentlemen who are present, if you have any questions, you can either ask them in the chat or you can open your microphone and ask questions. We welcome them. We will allow, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A during this time. So if you have a question, go ahead and shoot. Actually, I have a question, Terry,
Okay.
for um, when you said, I think you mentioned earlier, you were talking about the difference between taking courses like at a community college.
Mhm.
Were those like concurrent enrollment classes, or were they taken like during off periods,
Mhm.
like to help to build? Because I think you said your daughter
Yep.
was able to benefit from taking courses like
Mhm.
that. Was it through concurrent enrollment, or how did you approach that?
Both of my daughters actually took classes at community college. Yes, for Taylor specifically, she did them during COVID because they were already
Oh,
online, a lot of them. And then she just sort of continued that in the fall. And because you can kind of work at a lot of these classes at your own pace, you can easily incorporate them with your regular workload, but you can also do them during the summer, or you can, oftentimes they're offered during winter break as well.
and a follow-up to that, what were their experiences like? Because that's something that I've been encouraging with my daughter we're kind of working our way towards that because, she's currently in the ninth grade. So
Mhm.
I think we're at a good starting point where we can start building our
Yep.
portfolio so it'll be as big as that Secret Service binder that you had there. So how did you encourage and your children, first of all, to the community college environment? Did they do it online? Did they do it in person? And then also, how what was their experience like
Mhm.
in if they did any in person, or whether no matter what the environment, whether they did it virtually or in person, what was their experience like?
Yeah, both of it. Well, all of Trinity's classes were online, and what she really liked about it was the flexibility to take the classes, incorporating with some of her other classes. She did a public speaking class. She did an intro to sociology, which is a standard class, like I said, on any college campus. So that knocked out one of her requirements there. And I think she did the intro to marketing class as well. For Taylor, she actually started in community college because she was taking Korean as her foreign language in high school. She took 2 years of Korean, decided, this is getting a little hard. She didn't want to do Korean 3. And so she really had a passion for learning sign language. And our school didn't offer sign language. So she took sign language 1 at a community college at West LA College. And the beauty of taking a foreign language at a community college is you get a whole year of the foreign language in one semester. So you could actually do like the first semester ASL 1 and then the second semester ASL 2. So in 1 year, you've already got 2 years of a foreign language under your belt. So she did that. She took 2 years of ASL and she took 2 years of Korean. So she actually ended up with 4 years total of a foreign language. And she was in person for the first ASL class. The second one, when it went online because of COVID, it was a lot harder for her to do online because it's sign language and you're not talking. And so that one was difficult for her, but she still ended up with an A. In fact, all my kids got A's on all their classes in community college. And it's not because they were, super duper smart necessarily, but it's because just the way that the classes are designed at the introductory level, it's very easy to score well.
We have a question in the chat from Robert.
Okay.
He asked, will most colleges accept the dual enrollment credits?
Yes, most of them will. You can research that and find out the specific colleges that you're interested in, but most of the colleges will accept community college coursework. The only school that I know, and we just recently found out, is FAMU, will not accept community colleges unless it is from the Florida Community College system. So like they were not going to transfer West LA units over to FAMU because that's outside of the Florida system. But that was the only school that we found where that was a situation. And thank you, Robert Groves. That's my nephew.
Hey, good stuff, right? I think one of the things that I'll share, as you were talking about outside opportunities to connect with organizations, and that's why I encourage people to work smarter, not harder, right? So if you think about the NAACP, the local chapter of the NAACP is going to have an event, right? And you can use the branding of the national org, right? And that local chapter to give you some extra cachet, right? So I think about, those outlets have opportunities for media, opportunities for larger outreach, and so you want to tap into those at the local level. That can then benefit you on the larger scale, right? So just something that is something to consider, right? So if you're interested in engineering, for example, the National Society of Black Engineers has NSBE Junior, right? And so if you participate at the local level for these national organizations, it allows you to have a larger sphere of influence than if you did something outside of those spaces, or it just gives you the opportunity to see a bigger picture for what you might be working towards.
And just to add to that, if you are involved in those local chapters, though, that also sets you up to be eligible for their scholarships when you apply. So NAACP has a lot of college scholarships, especially, or in some cases, if you're only going to an HBCU. But that is a great way to get plugged into these organizations, but also to make yourself more eligible for those scholarships. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions? I see some more things in the chat. Let's see.
I think some of the things that we had
questions.
in the chat were, they were more of comments, because you mentioned Bill Duke, and because he happens to be a member of Phi Beta
No way.
Incorporated. So
that's awesome.
We'll pause for just a second. Any more questions from anyone who's present today? I guess your presentation, it was so thorough, maybe the questions aren't coming because you did cover a lot of information. Let's see. Oh, can you do me a favor?
Yes.
Can you share your screen again and go back to the resume really quickly? And I think you mentioned that you might be able to share that format with us for those who want it.
I can. What I can do is I'm happy to send this out. Let's see where I am. I have I can send you samples from my own kids and just some others. And again, the resume doesn't have to be formatted in exactly this way. This is just how we put the information together. But like for other kids, like I mentioned, I had a film student. We had a whole category of just film work where we listed all of the different activities that he was involved in that specifically related to filmmaking. He had won a number of awards and had been involved in some other things. So you can tailor the resume to, based on the activities that you've had, but this is just kind of how we set up my daughters.
Okay, great.
We have another question in the chat.
Okay.
How many college classes should high schoolers take over the summer?
I would say as many as you have interest in. There's really no right or wrong answer. Again, for my daughter Taylor, she had a total of 15 units that she was able to transfer right into her college, and that basically knocked out a semester of her work at the school. For Trinity, she, between her AP classes and her college credit, even though she's a sophomore, she by I would say maybe winter quarter, she was technically classified as a junior. Again, because of these credits, but because she is double majoring in, she'll still need to go the full 4 years. But my other goal is, I personally have 3 kids, which unfortunately were very close in age, which equated to us having 8 consecutive years of college tuition, 4 of those years with 2 kids in college at the same time. So we were big on, again, scholarships, which my other workshop will cover. We got to get, there's so much free money out there. Anybody would be foolish not to go after it. And we have to go after more merit-based as opposed to need-based. But there's a lot of merit-based money on the table and people walk away from it every year. So we were very big on going after scholarships, and we're very big on, you got to finish in 4 years. Unless there's extenuating circumstances where you need to stay in school longer, we need you out in 4 because we're already at 8 years of college tuition. So that's kind of was the mindset for my son. He got out in 4. My daughter is definitely tracking to get out in 4, and as well as Taylor. So that's kind of another thing.
One thing that I'll say about the question around how many classes to take at the college level for the summer is that's really helpful when you know what you want to study.
Yeah.
Right. So if you know that you want to go and have a particular major at a school, you can go to that college's website and you can look at what those major requirements are, so that if you're taking classes at the community college level, you know that it's something related to or it's something that might transfer to that school.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like you're taking random classes, right? To just do something. It is, hey, I think that these particular courses will either cut that time short that I have to spend on campus, right? Or this will allow me to meet or exceed the level when I start, right? So for example, I went to USC, and so I stepped into classrooms where it was like, man, like my high school didn't have any of these types of courses, right? And so sometimes when I stepped into the room, I felt like people had information that I didn't know about, right? Just because I didn't have the class.
Yeah.
And so you can use community college courses to give you a bridge between what your high school has and what the college is going to offer once you get there, right? And so sometimes that in between helps and give you some of that gap coverage, like I mentioned, but look at it from that perspective as well, as like, do you think that there's something missing? Are you willing to learn something new or different, before you get to school? Kind of take that perspective.
Very good.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. I think also, similar to what Theo was saying, it's definitely important if you already know what your major is going to be. But then there's also that other side where there's the A through G minimum lower requirements, your lower general education requirements, and I know that like similar to what you said about your daughter, a lot of times they'll accept classes that you've taken because they'll find a way to correlate them to their curriculum.
Yep.
But if you're taking courses that are specifically designed to meet the A through G requirements, almost all institutions, except for, like you said, like Florida A&M won't take them if you're from, if they're outside of an institution that's outside of Florida. But most schools will accept your lower level, your lower division classes if they meet the A through G requirements. So like health, speech,
psychology. You kind of pair it alongside even what's offered at your school from an AP. So if they're offered AP Human Geo, then you can take that in college. They offer AP psychology, you can take that at the community college. Intro to sociology was, a good one. Environmental studies is another common one that a lot of high schools offer. So if you really want to be safe, then for sure you can just align the classes that you take with whatever is already offered in the way of APs at your school. But something like Intro to Soc, that's going to 9 out of 10 times, that's going to be a general ed requirement at any college.
Yeah.
So that's-
And they count for both high school and
Yeah.
collegiate. So I know that I've heard of institutions, or well, not institutions, I've heard of students who are able to basically complete enough credits to have pretty close to an associate's degree by
Yep,
the time
that's
that
true.
and then that, so that will save on money too,
Yeah.
as we kind of start promoting our next workshop, which
Mhm,
will
mhm.
be, are you, what's the name of it? I'm sorry, maybe you can introduce
Are
it.
you a competitive college applicant or something close to that? But it basically,
Yeah,
in that workshop, I'll be covering the A through G requirements. I'll be talking about the kind of classes that you should be taking. I'll go a little bit more into the AP college, community college debate, letters of recommendation, essays, the personal essays that you need to write. And then I'll talk about the finances of college, like how do you apply for loans? How do you apply for scholarships? How do you get financial aid? And then the thing that I really like to include in that, which was a huge surprise to me as a parent of 3, is what to expect in the way of expenses for that senior year of high school, because it becomes very costly when you start thinking about college trips and even these AP exams. If you don't have free or reduced lunch waivers, these exams are upwards of $100 now. SAT tests, ACT, all of these things are costs that add up. Not to mention the senior year is also prom, grad night, all of those fun things that high school seniors like to do. Not to mention that most high school seniors turn 18, which seems to be a big deal. They want to have a party or some sort, and then they're graduating. So, it's like all of these expenses, I had no idea were going to be like, oh, we should have planned a little bit better for senior year. So ever since then, I started tallying what we spent. And when I included that workshop, I'm like, this is kind of a ballpark figure of what you need to have in mind for your kid for senior year. And so that's
yeah.
just
That's a great point. Don't remind Brother Evans, because actually he's currently planning on a high school event. I think it's
yeah,
the prom for his
yep,
young person.
yep,
So we do know
costs.
about that. So as we start to wrap up, we do have one more question, and
Mhm.
then Martin was just chiming in. Did you have a question, Brother Evans?
No, I didn't. I was just chiming in on what you said.
Oh, okay. So we do have one more question, and it says, on the topic of APs, would you recommend taking as many APs as you can?
I'm going to say no, because the good part about APs is that they do look really good on your transcript, and colleges expect to see some degree of college level work, but they can also hinder your GPA if you don't do well in them. And so I think this is a case-by-case based on your child's ability. Like that kid I was telling you took 15 APs. I would not recommend doing that. Personally, and he was able to handle it. He was a super duper smart and focused kid. I didn't want my kids to feel that degree of stress, especially like their junior and senior years of high school. So my kids, the number we shot for was 8. The UCs require 6 at a minimum, but they like to see 8, and private schools at somewhere in 8 or above. But I would say that don't just take them for the sake of taking them. Take them if you really think you can manage that workload, because you also want to do well in those classes, too.
Excellent point. Brother Sessions, I see your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, Mrs. Haywood. I have a quick question.
Okay.
I noticed that you have 3 children all registered to quality institutions, right? How how did you get your children to be engaged in the college process? Nowadays, kids think they can be a rapper, kids think they can athlete, kids think they can do this and that. And I have teenagers myself, one graduating this year and one playing fullback for Lawndale High, and they can't see past PlayStation and boys. Could you give me some insight on how you got them to engage so I can try to grab these youth and save them from themselves? Amen. Amen. Amen.
Ah, that sounds like a sermon. I don't know that there is one sure answer to this because I think for one, as a parent, we learned early on that you can't do cookie cutter parenting. And by that, I mean, every child is very different and unique and is motivated by different things, right? So we had to sort of figure that out early on, like, what is it going to take for this kid to want to be involved or to be engaged? But I think as a household, we were always very pro-education. We talked about college as if there is no other next step after high school. You know, it's not that you're going to get a job or you're going to, you know, get married. It's that, okay, after high school, graduate, you're going to college. Now, after college, you know, there's some leeway if you go on to grad school. But it was never presented as an option. It was always presented as this is the next step. And then we do a lot of these programs that we got our kids in also did a lot of that motivation work for us. If you get to spend overnight on a college campus and you're living the life, you know, as a high school student, that is motivation. And then you're around other highly motivated students who are also wanting to do the same thing. That is motivation. They're going to be more likely to be inspired by their peers than they may be on their parents. And that's okay. Wherever the inspiration comes from, we'll take it. But we found for our kids, just keeping them involved in these kinds of programs, even some reluctantly wanting to do it. But no, I'm sorry, we've signed you up and this is what you're doing for 3 days. I think for my son, one of the best parts for him, you know, he was excited about going to college, but before he knew where he was going, a lot of these schools, as they're courting you, they invite you to their campus for these overnights. I mean, he went to LMU, he did a shadow at SC, he participated in programs at UCLA. He was so ready to go to college because to him, college life was wow. You know, he was excited about it. And that's kind of the way that you get them going in that. It was easier for my girls to be motivated than my son initially. And I think that's just, you know, a gender difference. I find that even in coaching kids, most of my students that I'm coaching for college are boys. And it's for them, I think it's just getting over that hump of, okay, I can do this. I can go there. I can be successful. I can meet new friends. I can explore the passions or interests that I have, and I can succeed. So I would just say the programs you get them involved in, setting the household culture is, you know, this is the next step. And then keeping them surrounded by, you know, people like just even on this call, a lot of these brothers are hugely inspirational. You know, have them spend some time with them. Dr. Fowles, my goodness, he's a pro in education. These are the kind of people you want to expose your kid to. And we kind of kept a network of very college-minded, education-minded people around our kids all the time. And I think that helped drive the message home.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Great question, Brother Sessions. We appreciate that. And just as we wrap up, guys, we're going to go ahead and start to put the wrapping bow on this session. But thank you so much, Terry. You provided us a wealth of information, a lot of information that that we'll be able to use for future educational outreach and things that we'll be doing through our chapter. just want to give a shout out to Brother Kent Haywood, who's the husband of Sister Terry and is our chapter brother and a member of Phi Beta Sigma. And if I'm not mistaken, your son
Yes, he
is
is.
also a member of Phi Beta Sigma. So
Yes.
great shout out to our organization and the commitment to education that you have through your family. Thank you all for joining us today. We will go ahead and wrap up. This presentation has been recorded. It's also being live streamed. So thank you, Brother Files, for all of your great work in that. And then we will use this recorded session to share with families as we move forward. And we'll be able to share it with the other members of our like Theta Alpha Sigma and some of our other regional and local chapters so that they can share it through their educational platforms. So once again, I thank you for being here. We really appreciate this opportunity to share with you. And we look forward to our next workshop. We'll be broadcasting that as well via Zoom and as well as on a live stream platform. And we'll be able to gather more information for our youth and our young people to help them to, get prepared for college. So
Thank you.
any last words before we wrap up, Terry?
Yeah, I just had one last picture to show on my thing where, let's just see. Going to college is a process of trying to stand out. And this was a picture that we took on one of our summer vacations, and the photographer told us, I want you to jump as high as you can. Now, we're a very competitive family, but I want to just take note. I am technically jumping the highest. My arms are the highest. My feet are the highest. And it's because you always kind of have to soar to just do that extra little bit to just stand out just that much more. And I hope that, this visual will kind of stay with you, that applying to college, everybody applying to college is smart. Otherwise,
I think Kenny got you.
No.
I think Kenny got you.
No, look, my hands are higher. I can measure it. He may
And
look
their
better.
head. And your head.
He may look better doing it. He's posing, but I think I'm a little bit higher in that picture. But anyway, the point is you have to do what's necessary to try to stand out, because everybody applying to college is smart. Everybody applying to college has done some great things, and everybody obviously applying to college wants to be there. But what is going to make you stand out are something that is going to be unique on your resume, something that really shows your level of commitment and dedication to the process, and just your commitment and dedication to wanting to get into college and to want to continue the pursuit of higher education. So do what you can to stand out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Great way to close it out. And I did see just one more question. Is it Sekou? I think it's how you pronounce your name, but you're asking, will we be able to rewatch this meeting on our own time? Absolutely. We'll make it available through our YouTube channel, and we'll be providing a link to those who registered. And then you can feel free to share it with your local communities and